Elliott Lester, you directed the film Nightingale, which premieres on May 29th on HBO. And it's basically a one-man show about an unbalanced military veteran played by David Oyelowo. And it actually comes from a script that had been submitted on the Blacklist, which is an online network for screenplays and screenwriters. Tell me about how it came to you and what made you interested in it.
It came to me. I work with a producer called Josh Weinstock, and we were looking for some. We were actually doing a project at Paramount at the time, and he picked up a script and he said, "Elliot, you have to read this." And naturally, I was slightly skeptical because everyone says they got the world's greatest script. He goes, "No, but you should really read this." And I read it, and it was I wasn't sure what I read was real, so I reread it and I made a decision. I have to make that film. I have to tell that story. And that was it. We literally went from, okay, I'm doing it, to the following day, met in the office and actively started to put the film together. It was super fast.
And it's such a different kind of film than a lot of filmmakers are used to, since there's only one character on screen and it's all set in one house. What were the challenges? How are the challenges for you as a filmmaker different compared to maybe some of the other projects you worked on?
Well, I mean, first of all, having one actor, and the conceit being that you are going to have to keep people entertained for 90 minutes. How do you do that? And it was a challenge of actually really breaking down storytelling to, okay, a great performer with a really good script and the camera. And I'd done a lot of music videos and obviously I'd done other films, but I never had to move the camera so many times in such a confined space. And it was like, if I could overcome that challenge, maybe there was a reason to carry on to make more films.
Working with David Oyelowo, it seems like it must have been an especially close collaboration, given how much the film is built on his performance. Tell me about the process of of casting him and then developing this character with him.
Well, because we found what happened was, with the material, we went out to, obviously, to agents and managers in the town, and we were inundated. The phone did not stop ringing of, come in, can you meet our actors, can you meet? So we started meeting actors, and David we met a little later in the game, actually. I was very aware of his work. I'd been a huge fan in watching what he'd done. David came into the room and he sat with myself and Josh and Katrina, producers, and he was very honest. He was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know who Peter Snowden is, but I know that if we get this right, this could be something special. And he was frightened, like we were frightened. We were terrified of what the film could be. So that I liked him for that. I liked him for being honest. He wasn't brash or didn't lie. So then a few days went by, and he sent me a lovely note, which I really responded to. And again, it was more of the same. It was David being very honest and being who he is and very genuine. And I thought, this is a guy who I should be working with, and this is someone who will probably do an incredible job realizing Peter Snowden, and he does. And I mean, I'm very proud of the work we did together.
The screenwriter is Frederick Mensch, and it's a first-time screenwriter. Did he work? Was he closely involved during the production, or was the script pretty much fully formed by the time it got around to you and to making it?
Frederick wasn't involved in the production. He delivered this beautiful draft. I would speak to Frederick quite often and have lots of questions about Peter, like what cigarette would he smoke and what kind of food would he eat. And I would ask Frederick specific questions so I could then feed that to David. Frederick came to set for about an hour. We felt that, because of the way we were shooting, it wasn't because he's not a wonderful guy. We wanted to keep the atmosphere contained. And David, for the duration of the shoot, was Peter Snowden. He was not David Oyelowo. So I wanted to respect David's wishes and keep it almost like a vacuum, to be honest.
It's a small subject, one character, one location, but at the same time, it seems like a very complex production to deal with that those sort of limitations visually. How long did it take to film the whole thing from beginning to
So it
end?
was 16 days. And what we did is something I never did before. Is we actually shot in sequence. We shot from page 1 to page 103 all the way through, and the reason to do that was to give the actor the best possible chance to deliver the best possible performance. We didn't want to have, normally when you're making a film, or definitely films I've done, you're shooting out a sequence, and then with more than one actor you have scheduling issues, and then you have location issues. But with this, we made the clear decision we were going to shoot in sequence, because and I think it speaks volumes to how David was able to perform. He didn't have to be, there was no concern about, okay, I've got to be out of sequence, I've got to be this guy here and this something else. It was fluid.
How did you go about planning the visual style of the film? Since you're dealing with the one location.
I work with two very key people at as the director of photography is Peter Vermeer, and this was his first movie. He'd never made a movie before, but he'd been a friend of mine for about 18 years. And then Richard Lassalle, who was this phenomenal production designer. And I would do what's called a Bible, and I would go through the script with my cameraman and production designer. I'd break down each scene, and I'd put together a shot list, and then I'd put together a mood board that was related to the scene. And we built what's called a Bible, which is like a 120-page book with every single shot planned out as far as we could plan it out. So yeah, I was pretty meticulous on that.
And you mentioned, for David to have a relatively closed, a set to for him to be comfortable. How many people were on set at any given time during any given scene?
Our crew was probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 people max. But the way I direct from the camera, so I'm right next to the camera looking at the actor. So typically, if the scene was required, oftentimes it was just me and the camera operator. There'd be two of us. But we had a small crew. I mean, we didn't need much more than what we had.
With that setting, that house that you're using, was that an actual house, or did you also use sets?
Yeah. No, we had disasters with the house because we kept losing locations. We would find a house and then we would lose a house, and we got that house 2 weeks before we were supposed to shoot. So it was a house out in Tarzana. And it was owned by this wonderful woman called Ruth, who was like in her 90s. And, she was deaf and partially blind. And the only real challenge was that Ruth didn't hear when we were saying action, and she would sometimes come and appear in the shot. She would come and make a guest appearance and then disappear out. But no, there was, we art directed the house, we painted it and curated it.
What were some of the more important details of that house for the way you changed it to sort of reflect this character and this story?
Well, it's grandma's house, really. He's living in Minnetonka in Minnesota. So the feeling of the house was kind of like an aged mid-century modern. I mean, there are no real accidents. The plastic runner on the floor, the faded kind of sofas and things like that. It was about creating something that had felt lived in without feeling art directed. There's a familiarity to those homes, and like the art director's skill is making you feel that you're actually in that environment, that this is something that's relatable, and it takes an enormous amount of work. I mean, these guys have to go to prop houses and pick out the perfect props and so it's all details, everything,
Were there a lot of takes and coverage involved, so you'd have the most of the possible material available to you to work with?
I mean, there is always coverage. I mean, I don't shoot thin. With respect to takes, I get it. You shoot until you get it right, and oftentimes when you work with an actor like David Oyelowo, you can get 3 or 4, 5, 6 different versions, or nuanced versions of each take. So I would always, if David needed 1 or 2 more, I would always give it to him, because he would surprise you and he would show you something, a different shade of Peter. I mean, it was a luxury, because I could do takes. I don't shoot 20, 30 takes, because I think at some point the actor might get self-conscious and think they're doing something wrong. But if they want more, they get more. There's a thing that happens. It's a little bit like the ballet, and when it all syncs up perfectly, you have that moment, but you can't get back to that moment.
It seems like a film where, there might be, editing might play a very important role. Was that an especially, involved process? Was that something you thought very much about while you were filming?
I work with this editor called Nick Wyman Harris, and the way I like to work with him is the edit room is always a day behind, because they get the footage the day of. So I was editing while I was shooting. So I would, at lunchtime or after the shoot, I would call Nick and I would ask him how things are starting to fit in. And then we would look at scenes over the weekend when I had a day off. What was key was that the editor was interpreting the material. Nick was very good at interpreting the material the right way. And we would talk. We actually spent a lot of time talking to him, and the cut of the movie came together quite quickly. I mean, it's since changed, but it did. It was kind of in editing. They say that never fall in love with your dailies, because you'll hate the first time you see the first cut. I didn't have that feeling. I loved the dailies, and I really liked the first cut. We were happy, and that's attributed mainly to Nick and what we had and David's performance.
As you go along, as you were seeing the film sort of take shape while you were still filming it, did you readjust certain things or change any plans, or as you were filming that you realized the way you realized it was coming?
There's a little bit of that. What I do is typically like with blocking, I don't tell the actor where to go. I would invite David onto set and we would discuss the blocking, and things would shift a little bit that way, but not drastically. No, I mean, pretty much the film you see is a film we planned, bar movement within a room. But that's pretty much what we wanted to achieve.
There are actually other characters involved in this story, but we never see or hear them. We just get David's side of phone conversations. So were there other actual sides of those conversations written somewhere, or did you have someone on the other end of the phone for him to sort of bounce his dialogue off of?
No. In fact, early on when Dave and I started prepping, he goes, "Do you think we should have the other side of the conversation?" And I said, "No." I said, because then that will change the nature of the way you as Peter will interact with the phone. It's just like, I don't want to know which conversation's real and which conversation isn't real. I know there are certain scenes where he's not talking to anybody, and there are scenes where he is talking to somebody, but that is not something that I wanted as an actor to be aware of, and it would have changed the nature of the scenes, I think. So David, in his head, or Peter Snowden, I should say, would write the other side of the conversation, but we never recorded it.
Among the producers on the film is Plan B Entertainment, which is Brad Pitt and Dee Dee Gardner's production company. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the support that they gave to this film along the way.
Unbelievable. They've loved the film, and they've nurtured the film, and they've been champions for the film, and they are tastemakers, and they are friends of these kind of films. And in my conversations with Brad, it's an understanding that films like this kind of need to be seen, and because he has and Plan B have the clout to do it, they can
This film, you're dealing with, you know, this main character who's sort of, you know, in some ways delusional and has, you know, the line between what's real and what's in his head is kind of a, you know, difficult. And he does, you know, he commits these, you know, sometimes these horrible acts. You know, what was your feeling, you know, about him going into this character going into this project? Did you see him as sort of a villain, or did you see him as sort of a tragic figure?
No, I saw him as just a human being. He's immensely complex, like you and I. We're complex people, and things aren't black and white. You know, what informs our choices on, you know, is not simple. And I think that rather than, you know, because he does a terrible thing, and he does it early on, but you still root for him. I wanted to, I think what it was is I know in watching the film, you still find different facets to him. There was no type. Peter isn't a type. And David didn't portray that as a type either. It's more complicated than that. It's like trying to describe your best friend. You know what I mean? You know, it's tough. It's a tough thing to do. Human being. He's a human being.
So did you develop that kind of, you know, working on this project and working with this character, you know, for a while? You know, did you develop this kind of, you know, fondness and you know, sympathy for him?
At times, I really liked him when he, like, you know, obviously when he's getting changed and things. I really enjoyed him, enjoyed watching him having a good time, and then other times when he was being morose and loathsome, I found that difficult to deal with, because I found that at times it was things that I do, you know, and maybe I was in a narcissistic way. I was holding up the mirror and seeing myself, or seeing what, you know, we often jump around the bedroom in our pajamas, you know, but no one's ever there to document it. So I mean, at times it caused an affront. It was a little like, wow. Yeah, that dirty secrets you have.
Well, yeah, I want to, you know, thank you very much for talking with me today, and congratulations on this film, and best of luck when it premieres in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much.